Support for this program is provided in part by Guido's Fresh Marketplace.
Welcome to The Natural Cook. I'm Anna Gershenson. We haven't seen each other in a long time, but today we have a very special show on a very special day. It's a Valentine's Day, and so it's the day of love, of everybody celebrating love and honoring each other. And Linda Hirsch, who together we had already one episode of mindfulness of food. And today we are continuing with the same theme, and we hope that you will enjoy the show. I will be making chocolate cake. I've never made chocolate cake before on my show because it was all about, healthy food. However, chocolate is also healthy food. And we will talk about different aspects of how we perceive food, how we feel cooking or eating. So Linda, I'm giving you the microphone.
Okay. So Anna and I have been friends for many years, and in different ways, both personal friends, professional colleagues, because as a caterer and a wonderful chef, she catered many affairs that I had the pleasure of photographing in my life as a commercial photographer. And we met through our synagogue, and our lives have intertwined many interesting ways. And at one point, Anna came and sat with me in my meditation group, which is called a Sangha. And it occurred to me that it would be lovely to combine our skills, to have her use her gifts of cooking and baking, which she does a beautiful show on, with my meditations on various subjects, particularly food, but not in the normal way, not in the usual way that one might associate meditation and food. There's a broad array of issues that are evoked when we really dive into where the food is grown, how, by whom, and the whole process of it reaching our plates and our palates. And that's a form of mindfulness. So we agreed to collaborate, and here we are. And we purposely chose Valentine's Day because it is so deeply associated with particularly sweets, pleasant things, love, romance. But for many, it isn't always such a pleasant association. There are always shadows where there is sun. And so on Valentine's Day, you open your computer and you see all these hearts and messages. Buy this, buy that. This is how you should observe, eat this, etc. It's a commercialized, very well packaged holiday. And as I said, for some, it's very pleasant, this celebration of what love can mean in its many forms. And for others, it is a difficult day, as are holidays and other events associated with food. And we're going to explore today how our upbringing, our past, our memories of our upbringing and associations have meaning. For some, again, it's wonderful memories, goosebumps, flowers and chocolates and so forth. And for others, It's fraught, perhaps with some feelings of loss or heartbreak, each to their own, and we've all had a little of both. So as Anna starts to prepare the chocolate cake, and I'm smiling because I want her to share as well. For me, the association with Valentine's Day evokes two primary things. My mother, for whom every Valentine's Day while she was living, I would give her red carnations or maybe red roses. Red was her favorite color. And then there would be chocolate of some form. She lived on chocolate. We swore it was her vitamin A, B, C, D, etc. So the fact that Anna has chosen a chocolate cake is very charming and personal. The other association in my life, and I will ask her to share hers, is that my husband of over 50 years, actually 52 years ago, had an epiphany and came to visit me in Philadelphia, got down on his knee. He didn't propose, that was later, but he told me quite beautifully that he loved me. And this is a longer story, but it was a real epiphany. And that's where things really started to roll. It's our love anniversary, so I am celebrating in many ways. So Anna, what does this day, if you think back and now come into the present, how does this day evoke memories and feelings? What are you feeling today?
The interesting thing is that the country I grew up in, this was not a holiday. There was no holiday of love. There were different holidays like International Workers' Day. Remember, I was growing up in a communist society. They were honoring different values. And for some reason, love was never really something that was brought and offered to the whole community of people to celebrate as such. However, when I came to this country, I discovered that it was a holiday. And of course, I lived here long enough since 1975 to join this new tradition. And love, what love means to me is, first of all, the love of my parents. My parents were escaped the war and were far, far away from where war was happening in the depths of Russia. And so when the war was over, they came back to Riga. They were both from Latvia, and they met each other shortly after they returned. And my father fell in love with my mother and decided immediately she was going to be his wife. And so they got married, and I was the first child. And I was always growing up in love. My sister was born 6 years later. So we loved each other. We loved our parents. Our parents loved us. And so that's how it was a big part of my life. And I know that not everybody is so fortunate and to have a family and know that you're loved and being reminded that you're loved. So I think that maybe as a part of today's, reintroduction to love and honoring this special day, that we can ask for everybody to send their energy out into the world and ask for more people to receive the love that they deserve, and for more people who even did not get the love that they deserve to be able to fill their hearts with love and to send it out into the world and make other people happy, because you cannot be happy without love. So
that's true. Thank you. It's beautiful. Beautiful.
Richard Sachs is the author. He created this wonderful, easy recipe called chocolate cloud cake. And so it's accessible to, I know many people have special dietary restrictions. So this cake has no flour. So it's just chocolate, and he recommends to use at least 70%, which means that there is less sugar in it. Of course, sugar goes into the cake regardless. Then
So it's dark chocolate.
Dark chocolate. And best quality that you can buy. It's the eggs. We will post the recipe so that you can make it at home, but at least you'll see how I'm making it. So it's 6 eggs, and this is a stick of butter. And we recommend unsalted butter at room temperature because it will be melting together with chocolate. So when it is room temperature, it will be easier for it to combine with the melted chocolate, not to delay. And then, of course, sugar, orange zest, Grand Marnier. If you don't have it, you can use
Oh.
you can avoid it altogether, and vanilla. And then after the cake is baked, and it actually beautifully rises like a souffle. But don't be scared, because when it cools, it settles down. And it creates this kind of like crater that you then whip the cream, and you can also add, Grand Marnier to the cream instead of vanilla if you want to. And then you just, when it's cool and when you're ready to serve, you fill it, with this cloudy whipped cream, and then you can sprinkle some cocoa or grate some chocolate on top, and that's what it is. So to start, I would say that you need to warm up some water to get it rolling. So I turned on the gas on my stove, and I have water in this pot. However, you have to make sure that the water does not touch the bowl that you are going to settle on top of this pot, because chocolate is very sensitive to overheating. It can seize easily if any water gets in or gets overheated. So just make sure that you have a bowl that covers the top of your pot so that no steam can go in. So I'm warming up the water, and in the meantime, I will show you the easiest way to chop chocolate is with a serrated knife. That does the job beautifully. So you probably have serrated knife at home, because this is what we use to cut bread, and this is kind of essential knife in our collection. And then you just, by pressing, you just chop the chocolate, and it doesn't have to be like in even pieces, but try to make it about the same size so that it would be melting at about the same time and doesn't delay, your process of cooking. Also, butter, as I said, is already, I took it out to have it at room temperature, as well as eggs. Some of the eggs will be separated, while other eggs will be whole. So we will be mixing the melted chocolate with butter with our eggs that will be, combining with sugar. And then we will beat egg whites separately, and I will also show you how to beat it correctly, not to overbeat, because if you overbeat the egg whites, then they become dry. And then the process of folding in becomes difficult. That's number one. And number two is that they will make your batter dry as well. So an interesting thing, like looking back to my journey to where I am today, I have to admit and share with you that baking actually was something that was inspiring me more than cooking.
Interesting.
Because I grew up in Riga, where there were beautiful cafes and beautiful pastry shops, and
Uh-huh.
we were never baking cakes at home because this is like a really difficult skill to master. And in our family, there was only one person, my mother's cousin, who was baking cakes. And
Wow.
so we were admiring, how she was doing it. But we had so many wonderful resources where for any celebration, we could go and, buy beautiful cakes. And these cakes stayed in my memory. And Latvian cafes and pastry shops, they were using the technique based on the Viennese pastry making tradition, and not French, the way that, everything here is geared towards French. And not many people know how wonderful Viennese pastries are until maybe they travel to Vienna. So I had in my mind these beautiful torts, and I said to myself that I need to, make it myself. And so I started advertising myself to my friends and, colleagues. At that time, I was working as a resettlement coordinator, helping all the families from the Soviet Union settle here. So I had connections with the community. And I started telling them that I was baking cakes, and if they needed anything special for a celebration, just to let me know what they want, and I'll make it for them. And so, of course, I ended up also buying this wonderful book, The Art of French Pastry Making. And that is what, helped me.
Is there one for Viennese as well, or you chose the French one? That's interesting.
Yeah, I thought interesting because number one, Viennese was not really popular here. So there were I had to actually look at this book, at that time, this wonderful bookstore cafe, these bookstore cafes where you can have coffee leisurely, and then there are all these books on display that you can purchase or just leaf through. And my bought this book, and it was like, in Yiddish, say shirt, that it would end up in my house. And I mastered it, and then the rest is history. So I ended up making wedding cakes and, very special
which
cakes.
I photographed, which were absolutely stunning. Yes, yes.
Yes. Yeah. So right now, what I did is I put the chocolate, and it started slowly melting. And what I will do is cut the butter into cubes. It's better if it's in smaller pieces, so that it would melt faster. So I will cut it into cubes, and it's already pretty soft. And with the heat of the melted chocolate, it will take no time for it to get melted and for them to combine together.
Again, you said this was unsalted butter, if I recall?
Unsalted butter, yes, unsalted butter. So I can show that this butter is already, chocolate beginning to melt. And then I'm just dropping this butter into it. And I will get a spatula, and I will start mixing them.
The water is at a full boil or not?
The water is simmering, like
simmering.
Very small bubbles. So I am mixing it together, right? So I will allow for this process to take over, because it's on very low heat. So I'm not concerned. And in the meantime, we are going to start with our eggs. So I already pre-measured a cup of sugar. So the recipe calls for a cup of sugar. However, only half a cup will go into the eggs. The other half we will save for egg whites. So I want to make sure that I don't make any mistakes. So also, when you are measuring ingredients, I know that it is great. Yes, this is already half a cup. It is wonderful when you are baking to be able to weigh things. And this is something that I do, but of course, when you are doing it kind of on a professional basis, then it's more important. But sugar, measuring sugar is really not a big deal. You just put it, everything that you measure. You have to make sure that you fill it, and then you take a knife and you push it through so that the top falls off and you have exact amount, okay?
This is particularly interesting because when we were discussing what to bake today or what to prepare, and I threw a challenge at you, a recipe that my mother had taught me that she had used that had no precise measurements in certain parts. She baked a lot by taste. And it's fascinating how, as you said, especially when it's on a professional basis, precision is very important. There's a reason that we have recipes. Although they can be tweaked, the measurements, the proportions are very critical. And what you're showing us, and we'll come back to, is mindfulness.
Yes.
It's paying attention.
Exactly. This is mindfulness in its really pure form, because without mindfulness, you cannot really be in the kitchen. You come to the kitchen and it's like you are leaving everything behind. Remember, we were discussing it. And
that's the letting go that I'll come back to. That is the letting go and being fully present.
Yes, because if you are not fully present, it's even, it's interesting that we don't think about, not more and more people now and different experts talk about energy. But energy is everything, and energy, we are energy, right? And, like exercises that we do, or special routines like Qigong or Tai Chi, with circling our arms, and because
the flow of energy from mind to body and back.
Right, we are reviving the energy in our bodies and making them whole again. And so, again, like this here, you're twirling it around, right? So you're kind of like creating also a swirl of energy, right? And you're passing your energy to the food. And
Water for chocolate. Do you remember the film, like Water for Chocolate?
Oh my God, I was just going to say that.
Yeah, and we didn't practice this, so that's wonderful.
Yes, it is so incredible, because if you haven't read this book, there is actually a movie that you can see as well if you don't want to read the book. Of course, the book is better than the movie as usual.
It's wonderful.
But this is, she was putting her energy into the food, and people who were eating it could feel it. And so she always was putting love, and people were happy eating the food. But then when there was an occasion when she was upset because she had a romance, and people started eating her food, and everybody started crying. So it's amazing. Okay, so I'm taking a bigger bowl, as you can see. Why? Because we need to have space so that we can, use the folding motion easily without being afraid that we are going to, be limited. So I'm washing my hands because
this is also metaphorical.
Yes.
This is also metaphorical because you're giving the ingredients the space to breathe, to mix gently. Yeah. Which is what we do in our bodies when we meditate. It's a very gentle mixing and blending. Yeah.
Yes, it's wonderful that you are bringing these parallels together. And
that's what the purpose is for our collaboration.
Right. It's very educational, and also kind of opens our eyes to how to make ourselves happier, right? So I'm taking a bigger bowl, right? So in this recipe, so it says here, And by the way, Richard Sachs, who created this recipe, he was a very, very kind human being. And he was writing for very many publications and many different magazines like Bon Appetit, Gourmet, and he was the head of the kitchen, creating different recipes. And unfortunately, in those days, people who were gay and they were coming down, with illness, HIV, he didn't want to disclose it, and he never disclosed that he was gay either. And so he passed away young because he was sick.
That's sad. Yeah.
So we are honoring him today as well, his memory. So what we are going to do is we need 2 whole eggs and 4 separated. So
are these large, extra large? Do you favor?
They are large. I always use large eggs. And of course, we are now going through this period where even our eggs have become expensive. But when we think about, if you think about, what it takes to produce eggs, then you understand that this is not really that expensive anyway. We just have been spoiled.
All relative. No.
Right. So what I'm going to do is I have a mixing bowl, okay? So some of these will go into the mixing bowl because they will be whipped. So I have 2 whole eggs that go directly into this bowl. And then the others will be separated.
Mm-hmm. You buy organic eggs, or does it matter to you?
Yeah. I try to buy organic eggs.
Given how chickens are raised, etc., we know there are many abuses in the food industry, and that's tangential but related to this. Yeah.
Exactly. And this is something that I've been always proselytizing about, on my show, letting people know, why they should be doing
That's mindful. That's mindful because it's so vital.
Okay, so I'm separating the egg whites. Okay, so whisk 2 eggs and 4 egg yolks. All right, so I will
4 egg yolks. That's interesting.
So I will have 4 egg whites that will be beaten separately, and 4 egg yolks that go in together with 2.
Oh, okay, so they're even. Okay, that makes sense.
Yes, so yes, they are even, except in the chocolate mix, we have also 2 whole eggs.
Very rich, yeah.
Yes, let me tell you that in general, separating eggs is easier when they are cold.
Interesting.
However, beating and getting the biggest volume with the egg whites is best when they are warm.
Oh, that's interesting.
So what you can do is you can actually just separate your eggs when, like, for egg yolks, for egg white, right? When they are cold.
And then let them sit.
And then let them sit. Or, if you are not afraid, because once, even if a little bit of egg yolk gets into the egg white, the volume will be affected.
That's really interesting. Yeah, so mindfulness again, care, slow motion.
Yes, you have to be sure that the bowl in which you are beating your egg whites is pristinely clean, that there is no like wash it out with soapy water and dry it out. I'm going to put it into the bowl where I will put the white.
Point, Anna, this brings up another point that I hadn't thought of, and this is evolutionary here.
Yes.
That everything we do affects everything else. Everything is connected. Obviously, in a recipe, everything is connected, but even so much as a tiny speck of egg yolk,
absolutely, yes,
if it contaminates the white, has an effect.
Yes.
the process of baking or cooking or the energy that you're, giving off in the kitchen, it should be done in a fully present state of mind, not just for safety, but for the end result is, that's what it's all about.
Yes. So one step that I have omitted, and I apologize, and this is something that you should really start with, is lining your baking pan with parchment. So the recipe calls for an 8-inch springform pan, so that after it's baked, you can remove the sides, and then it will be easier to remove.
I'm familiar with that.
Okay. Then you will take your parchment. So I'm kind of like putting it on top to cut a piece that will be close to what I need. Okay, and then
the reason for the parchment paper, you choose that instead of greasing or flouring the pan. Yes.
Yes.
You use parchment paper. Yes. Why do you prefer that?
Actually, he says that you should not be greasing the parchment. And so it will be very difficult for you to be removing the cake if it is on this base without this. Mm-hmm. So what we are going to do is you can melt the butter, or you can take butter and just like smear and I'll show you how I'm doing it. So either you can melt the butter and take a pastry brush and then go around, or
before you put on before the parchment or on top of, are you greasing the parchment paper or the pan?
You have to grease the pan, because otherwise
that's what I was trying.
It will be floating, it won't be fastened. Again, mindful, right? Okay, so
I think many people would have done one or the other, but not known to do both unless they're really expert.
So what I do, you don't even have to butter it, the whole thing. You can just kind of like make a cross, right? And because that's all you need in order for the paper to stick to it. But first you want to take, okay, and you want to just draw a circle around, because otherwise, how can you cut?
Wow.
One step after another, right? Again, mindfulness. And this is all part of, cooking or baking. And I haven't started with this magical word that everybody knows who has watched my episodes, mise en place, which is a French word for preparing all the ingredients in advance and having them there sitting and waiting, so that you don't discover in the last second that you don't have anything. And then proceed.
Being prepared. Yeah.
So even setting everything up is it's a step of mindfulness, because you're not just setting everything up, the ingredients, you're setting yourself up. You're preparing yourself to be there and not to be disturbed.
You're centering yourself, you're grounding yourself. It's all of this interconnectedness. Right. You're aware of all the elements, and bringing them together requires attention.
Yes, and it's interesting that I'm very glad that we are creating, this episode together, because mindfulness has entered our lives, like this term mindfulness, right, has entered our lexicon, and we've become aware. When I was growing up, mindfulness, like what is mindfulness? This word kind of never existed in my vocabulary. But now we understand how important mindfulness is and how much it means to us, to our health.
Yes. So I want to just interject briefly. I want to do a meditation. I'd like to do 2 of them if time allows, but I don't want to intrude, but I want to reinforce some of the terms that we've mentioned and bring some other terms into the discussion. I can do a brief intro?
Yes.
And you can finish, and then I'd like to do a meditation together. So there are so many things that we both want to share, and there isn't time. But what we've touched on, just going back over our thought process and what's been presented today, we've touched on, because this is bringing together food and mindfulness within the context of love. We've talked about tradition, what we were accustomed to, our memories, your going in, the aroma, the sensory stimuli of those wonderful cafes, and family gatherings, tradition, associations of certain elements of food with our lives in the form of love as a way of expressing and sharing love. And then, there's a yin yang to everything.
Yes.
We become attached to tradition and we want to do it this way, all the way, every time.
Yes.
And that's a form of attachment, which sometimes, especially with costs going up and shortages and terrible things happening in places of the world, we have to let go of our need to be perfect, to be attached, to observe tradition in a certain way. That's very difficult. It's very difficult. Yeah. And so I'm a psychologist by basic training and experience, and the term cause and effect, stimulus and reinforcement. So every time we taste chocolate or smell or have an association with chocolate, that's a reinforcement.
Right.
It is a reinforcement. On the one hand, can be very beneficial and positive, and on the other, could be painful. Could be. But today is a day that we want to stress the upside. So continue, Anna, and then I'll lead a brief meditation.
Yes. So I'm grating the zest of the orange because it will go into our cake. And of course, again, like we were discussing before and pointing out that all our senses are here, present. And so the same will be for you smelling things. And what can be more delicious than the smell of grated orange, where all these precious and volatile oils from the rind.
That's a great word, volatile. Yes. The molecules are in the air and they enter our nasal passages.
If you allow, they will.
So what does this mean for people who are suffering from long COVID and really have lost their sense of smell or their sense of taste? Oh my goodness, that's so difficult.
I feel that it's really tragic. I
Yes.
can't really imagine it happening to me, and I know that my niece experienced it, and through sniffing various essential oils, she actually recovered. So there is a way to recover, but again,
I've been sharing that. That's quite interesting.
Yes, you need to be mindful, right?
Specific oils, specific essential oils can re-trigger. It's fascinating.
Essential oils. So what we are going to do now, we have our chocolate, right, that is melted with butter. Now we are going to beat by hand our egg yolks with whole egg.
Is it possible to overbeat the eggs? I mean, I've heard you should limit how much you beat.
The eggs, I never experienced any kind of instructions of that kind, overbeating the eggs. I don't know.
That's interesting. Huh.
Yeah, it's more appropriate for egg whites. because they will dry.
Mm-hmm. But for
then-
the yolks, it's until they're mixed sufficiently.
But I think that because the egg yolks have fat in them, and fat prevents you from overbeating it, I think.
Interesting. Well,
And especially, when you do it together with sugar, I'm sure that there is, chemistry that happens.
the critical word, chemistry. This is all about chemistry. That's
Yeah,
right.
We transfer this not only to interrelations of different ingredients in food, but we're talking about that we don't have personal chemistry with some people, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then if you are bound to be with that person as a working relationship, and you do not have chemistry, that's a tough one. So this is nice and combined, so you can see.
Smooth. It's smoothly blended. Yeah.
And you see bubbles on top, and the color is, of course, getting lighter. The more you beat, the lighter the color will be.
Mm-hmm.
But you really don't have to work too hard here. So then I will add the chocolate. The melted chocolate will go in together with the butter. And once they are mixed together, and of course I'm preheating the oven. I don't remember if I mentioned that you need.
Would you repeat that again, please?
The oven has to be preheated to 350 degrees, and the rack has to be in the middle. It's also important where you place the rack. It has to be in the middle.
There are reasons for everything, and a time and a place for everything. Yeah.
And now you're mixing together the chocolate with eggs, and then making sure that everything is smooth and there are no lumps, because then you won't be able to have a uniform mixture. Then you are adding your grated orange zest and Grand Marnier, and let's see how much Grand Marnier we need. 2 tablespoons. So Grand Marnier, of course, is an orange liqueur.
It's one of my favorites. Yeah.
Yes. So orange and chocolate, there are flavor combinations that have become kind of ingrained in us, right?
Yeah. Well, I'm going to use another word because I've been waiting to embodied. It's embodied. When we have all these sensory experiences and energy swirling around us, and I'm watching you, you're still in the middle of this whirling and blending and inhaling. And it's all a process of embodying what is going on in the mind.
Yes.
The flow that we talk about. How many people walk through a kitchen and they're like zombies? They're totally clueless.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think that the more skilled you become, the more comfortable you become.
Sure. That's true of everything.
Yes. And then you let go of your inhibitions and worries, and then you allow basically.
You open. It's kind of in mindfulness it's called being spacious, expansive as opposed to narrowing.
Yes.
Anna, I just want to bring your attention to the time and the fact I'm waiting to do a meditation.
Okay.
So this is a little bit of a dance we need to do.
This is the last step. I'm beating the whites. I'm folding in. They go in, and then go ahead.
So I'll see how much time we can squeeze in here as you're finishing. Go ahead.
First, you beat the egg whites to a soft peak stage, and then you start adding the sugar, and then you will beat it to hard peak stage, but don't overbeat. Okay.
Otherwise, it gets dry. I was listening, and I'm practicing. This is really another element of mindfulness. Is mindful speech, you're choosing your words with care, and I'm doing attentive listening, which is equally important. It's hard when we all have so much to share, to sit in silence or to sit still, but attentive listening is very critical. The kind of meditation that I have been taught to teach and have practiced for over 40 years is, there are three names for it. You said mindfulness was not a term you were familiar with, Anna. It's also called insight meditation, which is implicit, that when you're still and quiet and attentive, things bubble up. And those are insights. And the other word for the kind of meditation that I've been taught and teach is vipassana, and it began in India many, many, many years ago. This is not something trendy or new. So the third description is vipassana. Sounds exotic, and it's something quite foreign to our Western mind. So the meditation I want to engage in, I'm going to wait until you've finished assembling things, is going to be a very free-form one today. Going to read a very brief piece. Go ahead, and just we'll stop and meditate soon. There it is. Stiff but not dry.
Right. Okay, now I'm going to fold it and stick it in the oven, and then we wait, and we can enjoy, our meditation.
Do you put cream of tartar in ever, or not at all?
In general, yes, cream of tartar stabilizes egg whites, but also a little salt might do that. But in this case, I didn't do anything, and there is no direction on Richard's end to add it. But you can do it, absolutely, you can do it. So first you fold in a little bit. You lighten up. You don't pour the whole mixture in. You lighten up, and this is the kind of movement you use. You turn the bowl, you rotate the bowl, because rotating it will allow, and you scrape the sides, and you're lifting and dipping until you have incorporated these egg whites, and they are light. The mixture became light. So now you add the rest and fold in the rest. And of course, if you overbeat, you will have a very hard time doing it, because you will have these lumps of air that is trapped in the white.
Interesting.
That is preventing this mixture to be uniform and smooth. Okay.
Oh, that is so beautiful to watch. You burn off enough calories that then you can eat some of the cake later.
Right. You also fold in your love. Fold in your love. And
while you're stirring, and before we put it in the oven, I just want to add a few little facts, not a lot. So continue mixing. I shared an article with you and several of my colleagues that was recently published. It was either the New York Times or the Washington Post, I forget the source, an article by Richard Chance about nutrition and how we are being conditioned to eating junk food that becomes an addictive behavior. We haven't touched on the addictive nature of certain foods, particularly junk food and sweets. And I will email the header to the cable station so that maybe they can post this. There are many, many neurological research findings published in the American Journal of Clinical Nutrition, really good sources, very well vetted nutritionists and psychologists, psychiatrists. And it's a very lengthy article, and it has to do with the kind of fat and the kind of refined carbohydrates, the things that are purposely put into junk food as things were put into tobacco
Yes.
to make people continue eating without really feeling satisfied.
Yes. And actually, one point that I want to make is that
Yes.
there is a whole industry that is developing flavors. And
Yeah.
even if your product, it's very important to read the label. Even if your product says natural flavor, you have to drop it because it's also chemical.
Yeah, it's called engineered. Actually, a lot of foods
Yeah.
are actually being engineered. It's quite. There you go. Okay, go ahead.
That's it. Now it's going to be baked. The time is supposed to be, let's see, 35 to 40 minutes. It should be baked. Okay. So if we don't see the end result, then I just want to let you know, not to be scared, that it will start falling after you take it out of the oven. That's the way it's supposed to be.
Mm-hmm. Well, what you might do, given the time constraint, is when it is finished being baked, maybe send a picture or something, and it can be posted together with this.
Great idea. Great idea.
I know this whole show came about. We've been talking about it for many months, but it's a rather spontaneous, serendipitous occasion.
Yes.
And normally you might have had one prepared to show the finished product, but that's a lot of extra work. So that's fine. That's fine. So I'm going to we're going to set aside all this energy that has been flowing and circling you.
And I feel it. I feel it.
Beautiful, beautiful place. And I'm going to ask whoever's watching this, and my dear friend Anna, if you're comfortable, to close your eyes. If you're not, just gaze at something without intensely focusing. Let your body relax. And I'm going to do a very brief meditation. One chime, let go. 2 chimes, let be in this passing moment. 3 chimes for let this too pass. The moment keeps passing. We don't dwell on the future. We settle in to the now. We have our memories, the yin and yang, the pleasant, the less pleasant. And we have hopes and aspirations for future moments of pleasure and capability, as you mentioned, skill. And I'm going to read something very brief by Rumi, who is a Sufi poet from long ago, very mystical. We are the mirror as well as the face in it. We are tasting the taste this minute of eternity. We are pain and what cures pain. We are the sweet, cold water and the jar that pours. I'm going to read that again slowly. As you breathe up through your nose, inhale. And raise your chest and your neck and your shoulders and hold it at the top. A little bit like a hummingbird. And exhale through your mouth. And feel your shoulders drop, soften into your chest, your belly, your seat if you're sitting. your legs down to the floor. Why did I choose this particular piece? Well, food and cooking and baking and all this talk of mind, body, flow, embodiment, it all comes down to who are you? What do you see when you look in the mirror, the virtual mirror, the real one on the wall, the mirror of your soul, the eyes of your beloved, a pet that gives you unconditional love? Who are you? What do you see? And how do others see you? It is all related to what we've touched today, the memories, the warmth, the turning towards or turning away from loved ones. We are the mirror as well as the face in it. We can be mirrors to others, but first we need to see ourselves as we truly are. Except we're not perfect. We're not meant to be perfect. We're always becoming and alternately just being ourselves. So we are the mirror as well as the face in it. It's the inner outer flow. We are tasting the taste this minute of eternity. So interesting, we're tasting time. We're savoring all that goes into every molecule of what Anna has been baking today. We're taking time, we're tasting it, we're using it in this minute, every minute. If we're open, receptive to tasting, savoring. And then he says, we are pain. We are all suffering. Every human, to be human, suffers loss, letting go of loved possessions and people. So we are pain, and what cures pain? And we know what cures pain is love, not addiction, not food, nothing material. Love is the best cure for pain. We are the sweet, cold water. It's such a refreshing image. We are the sweet, pure, cold water. And the jar that pours. We are vessels. We are the embodiment of everything we've ever taken in, the air, all the elements, the earth, the water, the fire, they all affect us. And we may not be perfect vessels, as Leonard Cohen said in his beautiful anthem. There are cracks. Let the light in. We're not perfect. We could seal them with gold, as Japanese craftsmen do, but we're all imperfect. Little chips, little scars, or deeper ones. But we are a container of ourself within which there is sweet, cold water. And the outpouring comes from a deep well. Meditation is all about breathing in, breathing out, stillness, calm, quiet, integrity, all those beautiful words. But we can't hold it forever. We fill, we empty, we breathe in, we breathe out. And with that, I'm going to close the meditation on this beautiful Valentine's Day. It's a liminal time in our planet, the existence of the living things that exist and are disappearing. And if we're mindful about how we speak, how we listen, how we perform daily mundane tasks, there is a sacredness to all of this, whether you're religious or not. So for all who are listening and watching, and for Anna and that beautiful cake rising, may it be a beautiful day, and may love fill your heart and connect you with all that is sacred to you. Thank you. One chime. Thank you.
Thank you, Linda. Such a
How do you
beautiful
feel?
presentation. I enjoyed being a part of it. And hopefully we can inspire people to connect with themselves and let go.
There's so much work to be done. And you said it at the beginning, Anna. You referenced it at the beginning. There is so much going on in the world that needs healing and curing, as Rumi says, the pain, and we are what cures the pain. I wrote to a friend from Cuba who sent me the traditional big red hearts and Spanish greetings about love. I wrote back to her, and this will evoke a memory for you, as the Beatles sang, "All you need is love," right? On and on, that song is in my head forever. And then I wrote to her, love fills the heart, lights the darkness, inspires the arts, including cooking arts, baking arts, as well as other, connects us to our true self, connects us to one another, nature, and if you believe in a higher deity, absolutely, connection with something beyond our understanding. So do you have some closing words as we wind down?
I just want to send my blessings to everyone. Thank you for joining us, and I hope that what we tried to share with you will fill your heart and your memories and make you a little happier. Thank you.
It's really beautiful. Thank you, Anna. I'm going to end the session. I hope the cake comes out beautifully and that you get to enjoy it with your beloved Edward. Thank you so much.
Support for this program is provided in part by Guido's Fresh Marketplace.